All right. So, Michael, welcome to the podcast and thank you. It's a pleasure to reconnect with you. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
we've had some opportunity in the past to actually meet and discuss each other's endeavors, and I'm thankful to have you here and be able to explore more about your recent success and the acquisition that just took place and how you're actually expanding the offering that we once spoke about. And so, at the time, you were under the MXL Partners, and now you've been acquired and have merged with another company called Moffit. Is that right?
Yes. I've been working the last decade or so with private equity firms, and in a sense, got discovered by a financier who invests his company, and I actually helped one of their companies grow and with building out training and playbooks for a high growth sales organization. And, the founder wanted to meet me, and we got to talking. And so about a year ago, we've been in discussions and finally put together something where MXL is merging with Moffitt Consulting, which, if I'm all things sales and really drive an effectiveness for sales organizations, this other company, Moffitt, does lean optimizations of the operation sides of companies. So this is a really good combo synergy with high growth companies that need fixing or up levels in sales and on operations effectiveness. And now we've got the services of the package, and we're funded to be able to really help build a growing organization. And that's what we're doing, and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. That actually makes a lot of sense. And when you mention that, I have actually seen that quite a bit where sometimes product offerings aren't enough to just hand someone a playbook. I think the way you've transformed that initial offering is you made mention that you are staying on as sort of a fractional or even an institutional partner that helps to spread this information throughout the organization and make sure that it's really embedded in long-term fashion, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been doing this for a couple decades with companies coming out of Silicon Valley, and I was with a high growth. I was VP of sales for a company that was high growth, and everything was going great. We were taking over the world, and then you know, 9/11 and came, and the dot-com bust. So things fell apart. That's when I really kind of you know took a big step and started just. I thought I was a great sales leader and a sales guy, but I started becoming a consultant. But what I found in working with a lot of venture money and small companies, but then large companies with the network I had, started realizing people needed sales help. And so I do projects back in the day, but in coaching and counseling and training. But since then, maybe the last 10 or 15 years, productized it in a way that I could actually provide a subscription service for companies. So in that sense, it helps me stay with the company for a time and continue to snap on different services and needs that they have. And that's what we do with the lean and operational stuff as well, where we're able to keep coming back and helping them, because it's not a hit and run type of service. You got to help and implement it and get it done, because I liken good sales effectiveness to raising children, where you got to work at it, right? It's not a one and done. You got to continually help improve and to change behavior. But it's doable as long as you're not crazy about it, right? But if you do it well and stay at it, you get good fruit comes out of it.
Very nice. Yeah, and a lot of that knowledge has come. I mean, I know you've written a book about this as well, right?
Yeah, I got a couple books. I wrote one about 12 years ago called 42 Rules to Increase Sales Effectiveness. And I had Mark Leslie, who was the founder of Veritas, he wrote the foreword for me. I met him out at Stanford. He was teaching a second year school student class on sales. And I had graduated from Stanford before then, but I reached out to him because he was brilliant. He was an engineer. And so I explained what I was doing. And he actually had me, once we met, he asked me to, kind of proofread a white paper that he ended up writing and got in the Harvard Business Review. And it was really quite cool to kind of have, and then write that book, which was itemizing 42 rules that help companies, whether you're an investor, a CEO, a VP, or an individual a contributor, or even someone thinking about getting into sales. So it's a very practical book. But then about 3 years ago, I wrote another one called No Excuses, A Better Way to Sell. And
That's the
that
one
one
I'm
really
right.
reflects the stuff I've been doing the last several years with private equity firms. And I've been able to capture what I find are all these multiple areas of things that need to be tweaked and assessed and can be worked on to really move the needle when you're looking at up leveling a sales organization. And even an individual contributor could benefit from that, let alone the leadership teams.
That's awesome. And yeah, that book was written, you said, just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, 2022 is when that one came out.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. And so I imagine you've taken all this experience, not only shared that with in each of these books and the iterations you've come out with, but like you said, you've had quite an impact. You had the opportunity to work with large organizations and really see the transformation of what is it, the entire sales teams is what you would lead and transform.
Yeah, it really is something, sales is often misunderstood, but you need it, and some companies have it pretty wired. But even as companies get larger, they still need to kind of continuously improve how they develop their teams, how they structure their teams. The products change, how the markets, customers change, how you adjust to that, and how you communicate. So good selling is around a clarity of your selling engagement process, a clarity of your sales message, and how you position yourself vis-a-vis competition, and helping people understand your stuff. But also gets into the activities of individual people and your team, and the targeting, where they go, and even how you structure, even how you comp them. So there's a lot of moving parts, even the forecasting, how you look at the numbers to make sure you're going to hit your numbers. So there's a lot of qualitative and quantitative things associated with it. So it is process driven. So in that sense, everybody needs it, whether you're a little startup, or whether you're $10 million company going to 50 million, or 50 going to 100, or 100 going to a billion, or a $1 billion company that's just trying to continue to grow. So having worked with like the Citrixes and the Ciscos, and even industrial companies, like Summit Materials, which these guys sell aggregates and rocks and do these industrial big sales, multi-billion-dollar company, or companies that are 50 million bucks and they sell services, or industrial services, or software, and they're 300 billion. So they all have the same variations on a theme of trying to improve sales, and break that all down, and rinse and repeat. But it's all about coaching and making sure people keep doing the right thing. So in a sense, institute a good system overall. And if you do that, good things happen.
Right, right. And I'm glad you covered that. So it sounds like this method and the knowledge that you bring spans across. I mean, I heard you say startup, but is there a target, would you say, that like this methodology and this framework applies to most, or maybe like is there a certain ICP, ideal client profile, that you would address, that would this method
Well,
address better?
where I spend most of my time with is in the private equity world. So these PE firms are making these investments in different types of portfolio companies that meet their particular focus. So whether it's industrial sales, or technology sales, or other types of services. And a lot of these investments are made on companies that are high growth, but maybe they're immature. So they might be, founder oriented, but it gets to the point where the founder wants to sell. And that's what's going on in a lot of businesses. And so the PE firms will invest, take out the founder, put in new management, but then they'll go out and acquire new businesses that are in the same realm, and snap on these companies. And what they're trying to do is build a bigger platform of related services, and then get that up to snuff, and then flip that whole company down the road in 3 to 5 years. That's what the PE world is trying to do. And of course, they'll bring me in to help them along that path. So I'm always looking at whether the company has just been recently acquired and are trying to get them sea legs and figuring out how they're going to grow, or whether they're about to flip them, and we got to just let's produce a nice pretty playbook that's really tight. And so in a sense, whoever's going to buy them is going to see this thing's got its stacked together.
Right.
But if it's early, you still get your act together, and you help. That's how you grow, and that's how you attract other good people too.
Right, right. I mean, clearly, then this can apply. Like it's that's part of your assessment, is you come in there and you see at what stage they're at, and you adapt your framework for whatever's the most necessary at that time. Because I imagine there are iterations of it, correct?
Yes, you can produce a good playbook in 90 days or 6 months, but along the way, we're coaching and assessing and giving kind of readouts to leadership as to what you got. And I could talk to a handful of people on a sales organization. Really, what I want to talk to is your top producers, and start to see what is the practices and behavior of your top producers. And out of that, I would kind of connect the dots as to what it takes to be successful at that company, what they're doing. Of course, we're looking at other things too, such as the clarity of their sales process, or integration into a CRM, whether it's a Salesforce.com or a HubSpot or whatever. Look at the reporting, look at their pipeline, look at the rigor and attention to detail that leadership is imposing, or structured, and sometimes it's overdone and often it's underdone, depending on levels of maturity. And another big one is around the messaging, how they articulate. So that's a big deal. And there's all kinds of constructs and things to do to help salespeople communicate better, whether it's on the phone or in an email, or when you have a chance to get that call in front of a customer. How do you present and position yourself, whether it's with a deck or just, in a sense, any verbal pictures, or like, people used to do back in the day in enterprise space with a whiteboard, verbal whiteboard in an office. So there's all kinds of ways that vary in sophistication in how people
Absolutely.
communicate. And what I find, Stephen, is it's interesting. A lot of people out there, whether even leaders of sales organizations, um, have not been trained well. They're really smart and they're good, but they're just kind of going at it and winging it. And you can get away, you can do pretty well with that if you got a good product and market. But these people eat this stuff up because what you're really helping them do is bring some structure and order of best practices, and a good producer or a good leader will just eat it up and say, "Oh my goodness, this is good." So come alongside, help them, as I say, turn A players into A plus players, turn B players into A players, and turn C players. You rarely see a C player turn into an A, but you'll see them turn into, or else it's like it becomes clear to everybody they're not going to make it.
That is the possibility. Yeah, and you made a good mention of something too. It feels like some of these sales leaders could hide behind the fact that they do have a good product, and but that's just all the more reason that a good product needs a good sales team, and that's even more of a reason to bring someone like you in that has this experience to expedite, to help them just make up that ground of having to go through those problems and all those issues independently or on their own, and then wasting that time. Because as we all know, everything is about speed to value, and hitting the market as quickly as possible. And like you said, finding that, fine tuning that messaging to your client, making
Yeah.
sure you're looking at the right data.
Yeah, and often, part of a good selling engagement process is really understanding your buyer. So you have to, in a sense, kind of align with the marketing side and understand who is our buyer, what does our buyers really want, and why do they want our product, and then how do they buy our product. So there's a whole buying process that has to be looked at, and then snap in your sales process to that. So that level of attention to detail often is, it's not rocket science. It's just paying attention to detail. But when you get that synced up and you understand how your buyers buy, or where they hear about stuff, or how you engage senior leaders in in a customer setting, how do you get to them? What is the message you have to tell them? All that has to be thought through.
Yeah.
And what often happens, particularly in high moving organizations with a good product, is that the stuff just, in a sense, sells, right? And people don't quite understand. They say, "Hey, we got a deal. Hey, I'm a great sales guy." But, well, okay, let's break it down, because to scale this thing, we got to really understand all the pieces behind this so
That's
that we
so
can
true.
rinse and repeat and really scale it, because we want to grow across the nation or around the world. So
Right.
you
And like,
gotta figure
what
that out.
insights can we expose to the rest of the organization, right? If someone's doing something well here and they've somehow tapped into just that success, how do we expose that across the organization to ensure that gets shared out, right?
Yeah, and that's how one of those obvious things that's not naturally done. No matter how many salespeople you may have, it's like, what Mary's doing in one part of the country is just Mary's thing. And you find out Mary's always at the top of the charts, and maybe there's Bob over here in the southeast and he's doing something. He's pretty good too. But when you start, and then everyone's all over the place. But when you really start looking and you talk to Mary and Bob and interview them, as I can from a sales person's perspective, and I can get the Mary and Bob to say, "Hey," and it's funny, they'll open up and they'll say, "Hey, Mike, here's the deal. Here's what I do." And bingo, now I got their secret sauce. And then when you talk to a few of those, I'm able to connect the dots and realize, okay, wait a minute. I know why Mary's successful. I know why Bob's doing great, because there'll be some variations on it, because you don't have to always approach it the same way, but they're doing things that you find most of the others are not. Now we can capture that, lock it down, and it's a process thing, it's an activity thing, it's a messaging thing. Then you lock that down, and you apply that to the whole team. All boats rise.
There you go. There you go. And so if I could reframe, or not even reframe, but just reposition the direction from speaking about like how you go into organizations, and maybe focus on, as we've talked about, you have this product, you have a message for your own customers, maybe if you could help me understand in the past who you have seen this benefit the most, like this entire playbook or this strategy that you employ, who are some of the people that you connect with and that could benefit from this?
It's often people that are part of a high growth company, whether they're a CEO or a VP of sales or a CRO, or they're a producer, individual contributor in a high growth company. Uh, that wants to improve and be even better or have their company improve. And they may be in any kind of industry. Like I say, I came out of the high tech industry in Silicon Valley. And, I started out at IBM and then I was with, storage tech. So I was in big systems and in mid-range systems. So I knew systems and tech and all that and software. So you drop out of that and go into other kinds of services. And then I got into the market research. I worked for a company got acquired by Gartner Group. So in a sense, I got exposed to so many different things. And that was a great foundation for what I'm doing now. But so when I go in and work with people that are selling some straightforward product, and they're selling it in kind of old school ways, it's easy to take that and help them step that up and do it in kind of modern methodologies. The other thing is I've been around and had to go through all those training methodologies from back in the days, from Miller Hyman and solution selling, spin selling, Sandler, Challenger, all those. I know, I've seen them, Medic. I get them all. I've taught them, I've seen them. I know how to implement those. I've been around Salesforce. I used Salesforce when it first went to cloud when I was VP of sales. So I get the tech implementation of CRMs. So all those moving parts I understand. And when I come across companies in any industry, any size, any geo, I can assess what they're trying to do, look at their numbers, talk to their management, look at their targets, and then figure out within 45 days, do a pretty good readout of what are their holes, what are the issues, what are things they need to fix, and then put together a plan to prioritize how we can help them get there.
That's great.
And I said, it's not rocket science, but it's like, being kind of a doctor who knows how to push and prod and feel around and because of through experience, you kind of know where the issues are.
Yeah, and it seems
Yeah.
like a very mutable, like sentient process where, you take a piece of information and you move with that. It's not just this linear workflow, like you mentioned, it's a 45-day process, but there's so much being learned in that time frame that it could speak to something that you go into a certain direction and then come back or bring that in. So yeah, I can see how that really just has such a, I guess you could say, profound and unique impact on every organization to be very specific to their needs.
And also I have the privilege of being exposed to so many different companies that you end up with seeing a lot of different approaches to things. And there's some really innovative, cool things that are being done on traditional things. So how people qualify, how they do discovery, some of the tools, and so even application of AI in some sales organizations. There's all kinds of things that are innovative and new. Get a chance to kind of see that. And what I'm humbled enough to come along. Like I know a lot of stuff, but I'm not going to rock a boat and turn it sideways. I'm going to come alongside that leadership team, see what they're doing, and help temper them or help drive them to continue doing what they're doing. Because what I see is like, wow, you do this and you can continue to drive this. And I might say, just tweak it this way and make some adjustments that way. Because ultimately it's about being successful, helping them be successful. And in sales, there's a lot of ways to get deals and a lot of ways to do deals. And so in a sense, you don't want to squelch what's creative and good and innovative. You want to learn from them, but you also want to help it because I'm always looking at how do you scale this? Because ultimately that's what you want to do. You want to get it so you can do this across a bigger span.
Right, right. Yeah, very useful information there. I wanted to ask as well, you started to mention about being adaptable in terms of seeing the technologies, and previously you had also mentioned that there's so much in terms of the advent of technology and AI, and I'm just wondering, what does it look like? What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen? Because like you said, you started 20 years ago. Like maybe let's just focus on one aspect of some, whether it's technology or new thing that would be a tidbit, that would be something valuable for someone to take away that you've seen that's just happening differently these days. And
Well, I would say there's an overall comment I'd make on that. It's a good question. But one thing to understand is good quality interaction between a salesperson and a prospect or customer for not a necessarily a commodity product, but something where there's some juice to the product and there's some sophistication or complexity. But it doesn't have to be like, enterprise technology or anything, but just in a sense, a sophisticated product that needs some articulation of it by a salesperson to another person, not something they're going to buy online. That is never going to go out of style, but even along the technology ramp. What is always going to be needed is somebody needs to manage that opportunity, manage that communication, manage the process flow. And the one who does that better is going to have a shorter, manageable sales cycle that will optimize and actually create better, higher need because they probed into it, uncovered all the need, bring in the right resources, drive a better, closer relationship with that prospect and all the people involved, and get that deal done in a way that's the high value and it sticks. And then you drive a good customer relationship going forward. That is what people are trying to do. That's not going to go out of style. Now, but along the way with technology, you can actually enable people to do those things easier.
Better and
Hence,
easier.
it's AI. AI is not going to replace the salesperson. It may replace lead gen machinery with sales development reps at some level. The lead gen machinery is many ways automated in really cool ways these days. How deals get done, how leads get identified, how you penetrate into accounts to right people at the point of there's really a qualified situation here. All that can be driven by technology to some extent. But then you still need a person with some intelligence overseeing that and get involved.
You're
Now,
absolutely right.
how well that person engages is another opportunity point for like AI to deliver knowledge, insights, information about that customer, that person, that situation, that environment, that marketplace, so that that could be incorporated into what they're saying or their proposal or what their whole solution set is. And where in the past somebody maybe had to do all that research, now you have it at your fingertips. But how it gets done, it's almost overwhelming. It's like giving a ninth grader a big back in the day, big set of encyclopedias, right? It's like, hey, there it is. The answer's in there. Go write a paper.
The
It's
answer's
over.
in there somewhere. Go find it.
But now the work can be almost done for you, but it's got to be done even with AI. People can recognize when it's not done well. And so, but there is ways to kind of manage deals, communicate better, bring more insights into conversations and optimize that relationship interaction. That's the kind of stuff that will continue to be needed, and good technology is going to help us do that better.
It's a unique perspective to be able to see how we've advanced, but some things just won't be replaced, right? At the end of the day, to close that deal, it still comes down to good human interaction with someone who understands the product, who can not only communicate but empathize and understand the client, right? Who
Yeah.
knows their pain points and knows what the solution provides in terms of solving those pain points. There is that very human aspect that AI and all this great technology can only take us so far at this point.
Well, and that's and I've been seeing this stuff even since my days in the field, where people thought technology was going to replace everything.
Hmm.
So it's been around for decades, and what I've seen is like doesn't replace everything. It optimizes things, but even there's all kinds of fodder for avenues for missteps and for ways it could actually mess you up. And we saw that even with the advent of CRM systems. They're not the answer; they're part of the answer.
Part of the answer.
You gotta have them, but it's not like 30 years ago people thought, oh, I got a CRM, so now my sales are going to be good, right? Got a few
Well,
things.
and I'm gonna extrapolate that response and let everyone know that that's the same for AI right now, because so many people are so afraid of AI, and AI is not the end all be all. It's just another tool, right? It's just another part of the process that will make things more efficient for those who are willing to utilize it, right? Who aren't afraid of it, and who are, of course, incentivized to incorporate into their business, their day to day. So yeah, definitely good there. And I think you've shared so much great insight. Maybe one more valuable offering, or to people who are listening and who will hear this podcast, when someone comes on board, or when someone decides to work with you, what does the first week, 2 week, 30-day roadmap look like? When could someone start to see, and maybe we'll focus, for the sake of just who you're speaking to right now, maybe a mid-market organization.
Yeah.
What does it take?
Well, this is another thing that's kind of evolved and changed over time because I used to do kickoff call where I get all the right level of management on a kickoff call, and we'd launch hey, here's what we're going to do, and let people know all the people are going to touch this thing, and identify who the people are going to be involved and being interviews or filling out the assessments, um, and who are going to be in the workshops, that type of thing. And then we go to work at that, and maybe that first big workshop might be in a month and a half out. So then everyone physically gets a chance to meet everybody at a workshop. What I've since done, and because it just makes too much sense, is have that kickoff call. But then I now spend more time in the first week or two with the leadership team and talking to them. And even as I start to do some interviews with some of the key top producers in an organization, and we'll set up a secure site that people load up their documents. We can start to see some things. And as within just assessing, looking at their documents, looking at their assessments start to come in, I start to connect the dots and see what's happening. And now I almost push that we will have within 2 weeks, perhaps no later than third week, we'll have a meeting with the executives, either one-on-one or a meeting, to give them a preliminary readout of where they stand or what we're seeing. And that I find is just makes too much sense. They want to see, hey, you guys been talking to people. What's going on? How we look? What's happening? And we're able to now show them, in a sense, like a scorecard across several elements of what a good sales organization looks like, or the same thing with the value stream analysis of what a good operations looks like, and give them that kind of readout, preliminary look-see as to what we're seeing. And it's a great conversation. It also locks us in and makes them feel like, wow, these guys get it. They're really onto this stuff. They're seeing what we thought, but they're not putting it in the right context. And we're doing it not in a way to say, wow, you guys got some real problems, but it's always about, we're going to help you get from red to yellow to green. And here's how we're going to do that. Here's what's going to happen. And so they start to see, and of course that ends up something that they could actually take to their next board meeting. So it's a good readout for that. So the real thing I've learned is communications, and I got a lot of insights right off the bat within the first 30 days that'll help them see that, okay, this thing is going to be spot on. It's going to really help us when we get that playbook thing. It's going to be great when these guys do the training and help coach our guys after. This thing's going to be awesome. And we're going to get kind of readouts of how this thing is progressing and how our team is moving the needle, because it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over quarter to quarter to quarter.
Right.
And that's our typical engagement. It's like it's 12 months. And then people, by that time, they love us so much that they say, let's do this again, but let's, just reset on a kind of renewal, retainer type thing where we hang with them typically another 2 years before they get flipped or do something.
Wow.
But that's how there's so much things that could be done. And also I've learned how to price this in a way that doesn't, it's not like some of the suits come in and, people pay $500,000 or $1 million for the stuff. No, you don't need to do that. Don't need to be greedy. We want to provide great quality and really help people be better and help them up level what they're doing and be successful. And
That's
you could
great.
do that for a fair dollar.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any organization, any business that isn't willing to invest into their people, into their processes, especially if they can quantify there's always a few different ways to look at things. Sometimes there's an immediate value, but if someone has enough foresight and they've been doing it long enough, they know that there is also long-term value. And so I imagine that you fit right in there to, you've been doing this long enough that, like you just said, you've priced it so that way it's not going to blow budgets out of the water and people aren't going to be able to connect the dots of value, cost versus value and the output of that. So that's great to hear, because I think that's an important aspect. It's definitely something I see across the board, where the better that you can align your service to the end value, whoever that's for, your client, whatever that may be, it makes it really hard to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Well, hey, Michael, thank you again. Always, it was a pleasure to dive deep into all this experience. I mean, I know within a 45-minute time frame here, we've only scratched the surface, but I really appreciate you sharing everything you have, and I look forward to getting this out and sharing this across the web.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Great to chat, and good questions. You get it, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this stuff. It's good. It's powerful, and it's needed out there.
There we go. Yeah, right on. Well, you have a great day, Michael.
Okay, you too. We'll see you.